Hi guys, my name's Seb Tudor, I'm the man on the Silver Mountain, and welcome back. Now today I want to talk about compassion. Not your general compassion, we'll talk about that later this week, but in regards to the way that compassion is being used in the media and by people at the moment as a kind of form of attack. So recently we've seen, over the last couple of years, we've seen people going, "Oh, well, where's your compassion? Why aren't you compassionate towards these people and their suffering?" And in some instances, for instance, the situation that we find ourselves looking at in the States at the moment, where you've got children being torn away from their families over immigration issues and things like that. There's an element of compassion that should be shown, not necessarily for the parents if they are legitimately breaking the law, but especially in regards to the children. You shouldn't be tearing children away from their families unless those children are in harm's way. And when those children aren't in harm's way, their parents are well-meaning, seeking a better life, whatever else, and they've just brought their kids with them, then you shouldn't be punishing the child and harming the child by taking them away. And so compassion, dictionary definition being sympathetic pity and concern for the sufferings and misfortunes of others, that's a place to show it. But when you're talking about the compassion that needs to be shown for people who have had a product that they like removed, discontinued, or when you've had a group of people who are making a big fuss out of something, a big fuss out of a certain set of people speaking at a university or a certain event that's gone on, and saying that you're not showing compassion. Well, in those situations, and a good number of those situations, there's no real need to demonstrate compassion. Someone being upset that someone they don't like is speaking at a university, well, you're not actually suffering, you're not actually going through anything, you don't have to go and attend the event. Them being on the same campus as you, well, the campus is probably a good couple of kilometers, if not more, in size, in which case, you're probably okay. You're probably not just going to randomly bump into them, especially if they're only there for one event. And so as a result, it's a case of going, well, there's no real need for compassion or sympathy or pity or anything like that here, just because there's no real hardship being endured by someone. They're just making a fuss. And the thing is that then you see it in headlines, you see it all over the place, where it's, these people aren't showing compassion, these people aren't compassionate. And it's not a case of going, hey, here are some behaviours that you maybe should be displaying more. For instance, with some of the train line chaos in the UK at the moment, especially around kind of the railway links in and out of London, Thameslink in particular, which is near where Hannah is, I would say yes, that's a time for a modicum of compassion to be shown to those commuters who are having real difficulties because they can't get to work, they can't get to where they need to go, and so on and so forth. That's a case of, someone is actually suffering. Their livelihood is potentially suffering as a result of the chaos that has been caused. But in regards to, in regards to the situation that we've seen in the States in the moment with children being taken from their families, yes, that's again a case where compassion needs to be shown, because there is a party in that situation who is genuinely suffering, genuinely having their quality of life, their expectation of quality of life, all of those kind of things be diminished by whatever is going on. But when we're seeing it in the paper, or when we're seeing it on the news, it's usually a case of not, here's a genuinely suffering group of individuals who needs some compassion put in their direction. More often than not, it's a case of we are showing that this person isn't showing compassion, whether they should be or shouldn't be, whether it's logical to or not. And as a result, we're going to point out that they are not living up to the standard that we want everybody to adhere to in society. They aren't living up to our ideal. They aren't the same as us, and so we need to attack them. And the way to do that is by shaming them because they aren't displaying a set of behaviours that we would like to display. Now, the thing that springs into my mind is that when you look at a lot of this stuff, there's a lot of professional detachment. Yeah? Doctors may not always seem to be the most compassionate of someone's suffering because they need to pay attention not necessarily to the feelings and emotions of the person that they are dealing with, but to how to save that person's life. In which case, you might think that that doctor, that surgeon, whoever, is miserable, a terrible person, not particularly personable, and so on and so forth. And that may very well be the case. That it may very well be a case that their bedside manner is much to be desired. But if they got so wrapped up in the emotions, in the compassion, in the caring side of things, then would they be able to do everything objectively, everything within their power to save your life, to help you recover, to do all of those kind of things? And in many instances, I don't think that they could. You know, when I was doing when I was managing a large team, and I would have people come to me and complain to me about stuff, if I, on every single instance, became caring and compassionate and all of that kind of thing to that person, regardless of what information there was or anything else, then I'd end up usually coming into conflict with other people. I'd end up coming into conflict with that other person as well if I found out, or with that person that had come to me in the first place, if I found out that the information actually suggests that they are wrong or that there isn't anything that's up with them. You know, becoming invested then kind of weighs you down. Whilst if you manage to hold back on compassion just a little bit, then you know you get to take this stance of a bit more objective kind of analysis of whatever's going on in the situation. It allows you to make better decisions. It allows you to pull in more information in an amoral, unfeeling way that can be analysed to find the best route, as opposed to just trying to feel it out by yourself, which often doesn't work. So, you know, there is a case for, in many of these situations where people fly off the handle in regards to people not being compassionate, not being caring, there is an argument for, yes, they probably do a better job for not being that way inclined. I certainly, as a coach, do a much better job for my clients by not being entirely invested in their situation. I can still show compassion, I can still be understanding, I can still demonstrate empathy, but it's a case of going and doing that from a distance rather than allowing myself to come into that situation. And that's the difference that people see. If they don't understand that you can show compassion from a distance by being understanding, by acknowledging them, by offering your condolences and your sympathies to one extent or another, whilst not just throwing yourself in and getting it wholly involved to try and help everybody, then if you can't understand that kind of nuance, then there's firstly an issue there that needs to be resolved. But also, when it comes to then these larger situations, people see someone working diligently, working hard, doing stuff, and yet not caring about the people, for instance. And as a result, that irks them. Why? Because going back to the whole tribal model, the evolutionary psychology we've discussed before, it's very much a case of, oh, well, if that person doesn't care for the group, it seems like that person needs to be removed from the group before they start causing a problem, because if they don't care for the group, they're less likely to look after people, they're less likely to ensure the survival of the group's members, and so on. When you can't read minds, and so that person might be incredibly worried about the well-being of the people in this situation, but by distancing themselves from the people and working on the problem, they're going to actually help them faster and more effectively, and possibly with a solution that sits in the long term as opposed to just the short. And yet that's the thing, you know, the nowadays just doesn't seem to be enough for people, you know, and unless you come out and spell it out plain as day, then most people will kind of raise an eyebrow at it. And then beyond that, even if you've come out and spelt it plain as day to everyone, that potentially opens you up to even more attacks, because, oh, well, now you're just demonstrating just how little you care about these people and blah. Look, compassion is important. It's necessary in our personal lives and in our immediate kind of friendship groups and things like that. When it comes to big problems, though, compassion only goes so far, and there needs to be there need to be that group of individuals who will step aside and take the more objective, unfeeling view of things, where you are amoral because morality may not come, may very well not come into it. Working ethically, by the way, and working morally are two very different things. And so it's a case of taking that step back that then allows them to solve the problem most effectively. The people who are going to be working most diligently on solving the problem for the kids and parents in the situation in the States, for instance, are more likely to be lawyers who are not particularly concerned about those individuals. They are concerned about the problem of what's going on, the principle that tearing children away from their families takes and sets. And as a result, then they're not going to be hugely compassionate towards those people. They're going to be focused on the problem. They're going to be focused on solving it. They're going to be objective. They're going to be doing the research. They're going to be finding out everything that they can around it. And yeah, they will take into account the emotions, the feelings, the harm that could be done to the children as a result of them being torn away. But it's not purely out of kind of pity or concern for the sufferings of others that they're doing this. It's because this is firstly what they do as a job, and secondly because they are looking to solve a problem. And as a result, those people are more likely to get more done and solve things for a more long-term solution, rather than getting stuck and mired in the individual upsets and individual sufferings of each person. They're looking to solve the blanket problem and the causes of that problem, rather than the situation itself in this one small environment. And so as a result, I wanted to make this video before I make the other video later in the week around compassion, because compassion isn't always a necessity. It isn't always the right course of action. It isn't always what's most important. And as a result, seeing it used as a criteria by which, there is a bar, and if you do not reach this bar, then we will attack you for not being compassionate enough, for not being like us enough. It's the same kind of demands of cults and daft ideologies, where it's like, here is this list of criteria, here are these rules that you need to follow, and these things that you need to do, and these things that you need to say, these virtues that you need to signal like flares in the night, and if you don't do those things, then we will excommunicate you, we will ruin your life, we will do all kinds of horrible things to you, we will steal your family from you, whatever it is that that specific negative ideology or set of rules is going to do as a punishment. We don't need to make compassion one for society at large, or allow people to take compassion, that genuine kindness, that focus on easing the pains and sufferings of other people. We don't need to allow more groups to start using that against people who may be entirely well-meaning but just somewhat removed, to allow them to do a better job. So as said, I want to do a video on showing compassion later on this week, because I know myself, when I was much younger, I didn't show kindness or compassion all that much, because I didn't really see much of it myself. I didn't really get an awful lot of it. I didn't understand it. And it's something that once I started to understand it, it did improve my life. But again, it only did within certain very kind of specific and limited areas. Everything else was much better served by me being objective, waiting until I had evidence, and working kind of conscientiously and paying attention to what I was doing, even if that meant entirely ignoring the feelings of the people around me in favor of focusing on the task at hand. So, I don't want to see compassion be turned into another weapon for the people who already use everything under the sun to attack well-meaning people. And so this is kind of where I want to just touch on that and kind of spell it out. But anyway, guys, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Again, as said, it'll probably be Thursday that the video that I'm doing on compassion and showing it actually comes out. So, stay tuned for that. But otherwise, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the video later. See you in the video later. Take care. Thank you very much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video and found it interesting, then please drop us a like, share this video, and subscribe for more. And I'll see you in the video tomorrow. Take care.